Thanks for tuning in to the Old Dirty Basement. On this week's episode, we're covering 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, it was March 28th, 1979. An accident occurred that would forever alter the perception of nuclear energy in the United States.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us here, it's something that all three of us went through with our family and friends, and it was very close, within like 5-10 miles of all of us.
Yeah, for sure. We hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, leave us that 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review, and sit back, relax, and enjoy 3 Mile Island.
This is the Old Dirty Basement, home to debauchery, madness, murder, and mayhem. A terror-filled train ride deep into the depths of the devil's den.
With a little bit of humor,
History.
And copious consciousness.
I'm your announcer, Shallow Throat. Your hosts are Dave, Matt, and Zap. I love you, Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right.
hey, this is Dave,
Matt,
And Zap.
and welcome to the Old Dirty Basement.
where every week we cover a true crime.
Murder.
Or compelling story.
So sit back.
Relax.
And comprehend.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another edition of the Old Dirty Basement. I am Matt. With me always is Dave and Zap. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello.
Hey, hello everybody.
Yes, how's everybody doing out there in Radio Land or Podcast Land?
Podcast land.
Whatever land.
I hope they're all doing well. I, for one, am doing fairly well. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm excited about this one.
I too am excited.
Close to home.
Yeah,
So it was very close to home.
right down the street.
Yeah, I can see it from, well, when I grew up, from the top of my my street going to my house.
Yeah.
It's right there.
So we're talking about 3 Mile Island, the disaster that happened there. Or
That's
should we
right.
call it a disaster?
I'd call it an incident or an accident.
Incident or accident?
I wouldn't call it a disaster.
I think the government calls it an accident,
Mm,
There's the no fatalities. I'd call it an accident.
an
as
accident.
we know of to
Incident.
this day.
So it's about 10 miles from where we're at here in Harrisburg.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the 3 Mile Island was 10 miles long.
It's 10
I was
miles
like, why do
long.
they call it 3 Mile Island?
Because it lies like guys do.
Do you
About
think
the
it's really?
size.
Do you think it's really 3 miles, or is it like 2 miles? And
I never ran it.
I
so
know,
don't
right?
I don't know if you can do that.
They should call it like 5K Island, but
Yeah.
it's not.
I think it's
Not
bigger
really.
than what you actually visually can see.
Yeah, I think the towers throw you off. Like, you think the towers are the only thing on that island, but I mean, dude, there's a lot of people parking there.
Mhm.
There's a lot more than just those towers.
The towers. I don't think we. Is there 4? Was there 4 towers
No, there are 2 towers.
on 3 Mile Island?
There are 2 towers.
No, there's 4 towers.
I thought there was more than 2.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 that are active or were active.
I think there was 4 that were active, 2 shut down,
Well, there weren't 4 active. I think they only had the 2 that
2
were
at a
up.
time.
The other 2 were under construction.
That's what. So there was 4.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but the other 2 are just more for like a visual. They're not actually operational. If you look at the bottom of them, because I was actually in there on business, but the bottom
Wait, what?
On business.
on business,
Damn.
the bottom of them it was like the frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on like stilts.
Right, but then the other 2, the one was active and the other one had the accident.
There it is. So, yeah, and as a matter of correction, indeed, 2 functioning towers
2 functioning. 2 other ones are like on standby.
that they
Right.
just
Like
quit.
they're the B team.
They're the stunt tower.
Yeah, they're like, hey man, check that out. Wait,
Yeah.
what?
They're big.
You know they were in the Wolverine movie too. 3 Mile
Correct.
Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
What? They filmed it there.
You didn't know that?
Oh,
I did
yeah.
not know that.
Oh, you
Yes,
didn't know?
yes, that's a very cool part of the movie.
You better call somebody.
Better
Yeah,
check
man,
that
come
out.
on, Dave. Vintage cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Speaking of vintage, so this happened in '79. So why don't
Sure
we get
did.
into it?
Yeah, in fact, indeed.
We were all children. We were born.
We were.
Yes.
We were breathing outside of the wombs.
Yep.
Indeed, it was the early hours of March 28th, 1979, when the unimaginable happened to the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant near Middletown, Pennsylvania. An accident occurred that would forever alter the perception of nuclear energy in the United States.
Dum, dum, dum.
Yep.
It's true, though. So when we were growing up, which, you know, was happening while this was happening, but I mean, when, you know, once you're growing up and you know things and you can talk about things. So as early as I can remember, I mean, TMI was joked about, right? It was people laughed about it. You know, it's after the fact. People are making jokes and talking about whatever, talking about,
or a kid
radiation
was born
crazy
with
shit.
6 fingers and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
TMI.
yeah. There was all kinds of crazy ass stories, but it's amazing as we get through this how, I don't know, in my opinion, like propaganda, misinformation, whatever, is just going to make things look so outrageously horrible about the nuclear industry.
I think we found this funny because we had no idea of what nuclear power entailed. I think our parents thought of it differently going on, us being babies, 1979, of what happened with maybe, in Japan and things like that, Hiroshima. They kind of knew that nuclear power wasn't a good thing to mess with.
I didn't really know about any of this, but I guess like Disney and other people put out like they did like a little public service ad, like Disney did, like Our Friend the Atom or whatever, and it was all like to kind of promote.
I thought that was Jurassic Park.
For sure. No, and
It was much like that video.
For sure, Dave is not wrong. Dave is definitely not wrong. There was this time so after we dropped both bombs, the atomic age came to be. And as the atomic age came to be, there of course needed to be this promotion. And look, it's great. It's safe. It's awesome amount of power. And so there was, even afterwards, then there was this, you're going into the future. Right?
Well, this is America.
Like Tony Stark type shit.
But the American way of looking at it was it's cheap power. And that's all we thought about. It's like, it's less expensive than what you would have to pay for the power that we have. So they called nuclear energy cheap power. Then all of a sudden it was like, ooh, let's check out this nuclear energy.
Shit,
you say cheap and everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm on board.
Hell yeah, I'm for it.
I mean, you're talking like, where we grew up, there are, medium wage jobs. It's, hardworking people.
Yeah, just to explain to the listeners what, like Middletown, that area down there, like you guys, well, you grew up down there. Right?
Yeah, I grew up.
So explain it to the listeners, like what is Middletown? Like just so they get an idea.
Middletown is a lot of people like working in railroads, factories. A lot of people lived or worked in Steelton, steel mills. It was my dad had a federal government job as like a maintenance employee.
A lot of blue collar.
Yeah, very, very blue collar area. There wasn't like many people working. We did have a neighbor I know when we grew up that did work at Med Ed, which we'll talk about later. So I know he had a very good job. It was just hardworking blue collar people.
Yeah,
gotcha. And it's the surrounding area is pretty much the same. Zap, High Spire.
Yeah, so for sure. In
next
fact,
town over.
My mom worked in Middletown at some point, so she worked downtown Harrisburg.
Press and Journal
in my earliest of early years, and then after that, she worked at the Press and Journal. She was both a bookkeeper and a proofreader there.
So to visualize, and I grew up in Harrisburg, so you got Harrisburg, down the river a little more, Steelton, down the river a little more, High Spire, and then Middletown.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, we were pretty connected.
Right.
Yep. The 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, located on a small island in the Susquehanna River, consisted of 2 reactors named Unit 1 and Unit 2. Construction of the plant began in the 1960s. Unit 1 went online in April 1974. And Unit 2 went online in February of 1978. At the time, the plant was considered state-of-the-art, equipped with cutting-edge technology and automated systems designed to ensure safety and efficiency. However, the complex interplay of machinery and human operators created opportunities for error. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's one thing that's crazy to me is that how soon after this was open that they had issues. Because, I could see if it would have been 10, 20 years down the line, stuff starts failing.
Yep.
Or, you would have an issue. But this is like brand new almost. You know what I mean? Just open and they're having.
So Unit 1 went down came up on in April 1974. So if the bad stuff went down in March of 79, that was 5 years later. However,
So it should be under warranty.
You would think. But then Unit 2 had only been completed a year and a month before the badness went down.
And that's the one that had the issues, correct? Yeah. So the other one was actually functioning and I think still working up until not too long ago. So that one ran perfectly.
Shit, yeah.
But this one here is like almost brand new.
Almost brand new.
And if any listeners have ever seen episodes of The Simpsons, when they look at that nuclear power plant, the control panels and stuff, if you look at like any documentaries or anything on TMI, looked very similar to like what they would have set up in The Simpsons.
For sure.
So it was kind of a mess. I think their technology at the time wasn't able to keep up with what the nuclear power plant was actually doing.
Or
a lot of buttons. Or the people.
The people weren't able to push that many buttons. I mean, if Homer Simpson's running the
exactly
the control panel, there might be a problem.
That was my next question on The Simpsons. Like, is Homer? Does he have an important job there? Like, what are the caliber?
He's the safety inspector.
Oh my god! So that's what I was gonna say. What are the caliber of employees at his? Were they kind of making fun of like nuclear plants based on like the people that are working there? Or
So
in the show?
all of Homer's coworkers have either their masters or their doctorates.
Yes.
and Homer barely got out of high school.
And he's safety inspector.
Yeah,
Wow.
he lived in High Spire or Middletown.
Middletown,
Yeah,
right.
don't forget about us.
Yeah,
Or Allison Hill for that matter.
it's funny.
The Berg.
It's funny, Matt. I know the street on which you live in. I know the name of it. It's called Riverview, or the street you lived on when you were coming up.
Yes, Riverview Drive.
But it's amazing from where that's at. You don't see a damn bit of the river.
Just TMI Towers.
All you see is the TMI Towers, which at least tells you, okay, down there, yeah, the river's down that way.
You see a good view of the tower. They should have called it like Tower View.
Tower View.
That would have been more
Yep.
cool. But that people wouldn't have bought it right away. They were like, "Oh, this is going to be called Riverview Drive." You'd be like, "Ooh."
All right. Well, the night of March 27th, 1979 began like any other, with the systems functioning normally. But in the early hours of March 28th, 1979, a minor malfunction in the secondary cooling circuit occurred, leading to an increase in temperature within the reactor. The automatic safety systems attempted to cool the reactor down, but due to a stuck valve, things went from bad to worse. The main feed water pumps, which supplied coolant to the reactor, shut down due to the increased temperature. Operators opened valves manually to alleviate pressure, but the stuck valve continued to leak coolant. Without the main feed water pumps, the reactor's core began to overheat. The pressure within the reactor increased, causing more coolant to escape through the stuck valve. The control room was filled with alarms, and the operators, unsure of the exact problem, struggled to keep up. So there was this 3-something in the morning?
It was like 4 in the morning.
Yeah, you're talking to night shift guys too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So I'm thinking about this. So like I tend to start my day like early. And to me, I think early is like 6 o'clock in the morning. 6:30, like I'm working.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm at work at 6 in the morning, so we're up at 4:45, 5 o'clock to
So
get our day started.
These guys weren't the first ones there. This was, again, like Matt, you had said, this is like the third shift dudes, because this is a 24/7 job.
They probably got to work at 10:30, 11 o'clock to start their shift.
Damn.
11 to 7.
These are the
something
guys
like
that go out to the bar right after their shift
Yeah.
ends. And,
Yeah,
you know
they
what
would
I mean?
go to, if they were in Middletown, they'd go to the Blue Room at the time, which was certainly catered to the third shifters. I mean, the Blue Room, you could get in there, shit.
But usually any
Early.
job in a warehouse, you're talking guys that have no time in, so they have the worst shift. They have no experience. They have the worst shift.
Yep.
So these guys, they start hearing buttons. They're like, I'm not qualified for this. I don't know what's going on right now. And I think that's where the trouble started building.
Yeah.
And think about for most things, if you have an issue, unplug it or whatever. Like there's usually like a quick fix or dump some water on it or whatever. But with a nuclear reactor, I mean, this is like a whole different ball game.
But for most people, think about their living room, kitchen, dining room area. Maybe even it expanded farther than that. But it was just about 5 or 6 feet high, full of buttons coming down on an angle.
It looked like war games.
Yeah, pretty much. It looked like something out of Star Trek that they would just put up that you would see in the ship.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's ever seen Star Trek, I would hope so. But I don't think people there's manuals and manuals and manuals of learning to see what you would have to do. And when this is occurring of something not normal, there's a lot of people I don't know what the hell to do.
Dude, I still keep going back to thinking about these poor third shifters. Like the first thing I would think of is, well, wait a second, is somebody April fooling me here? Because it's just April 1st is right around the corner. Somebody's just fucking with me. Is that what's happening here? Because this doesn't happen. These sorts of things doesn't happen. And that thing was lit up like Christmas.
Yeah, so it was just going things everywhere. And they're probably if somebody reacted more quickly or I don't know, the rod was stuck though, right?
I think the valve, it was like a valve or something, right? Stuck open.
Well, no, I
something
think
like
they
that.
hit the valve. The valve got stuck. So then it was like atoms just bouncing everywhere inside this tower, making the heat up 3 times of the sun.
Well, I'd imagine too, it's not something you visually can see the problem. Like you're going off meters and light, and you know what I mean? You'd have to physically walk down and analyze the problem. And I'm sure each person has a specialty there. I also wonder about how far along these guys were or girls, whoever's working there, in their training on this. Because if this
Pretty new. Yeah.
If this particular reactor just opened, is it the same crew that was working on one? Is all the equipment the same? There's a lot of questions, I guess.
So there wasn't if I understand correctly, the reaction kept on going. Like that was the problem. The reaction kept going, but the cooling and the whatever and the releasing of the steam and all of that shit
that wasn't doing anything.
That stopped.
Yeah.
And because that stopped and because the reaction kept going, the reaction is just simply whatever they're doing with nuclear stuff and rods and shit that creates atoms to bounce around, and you're doing, fusion or whatever the hell's happening down there.
Well, it all has to do with cooling, right? It's got to. That's why they put it next to the river for the water supply.
You're generating heat through this reaction, a shit ton of heat, and then that heat is cooled with water, and then the steam from the cooling. You're doing all this basically just to create steam. That steam then in turn,
the steam just runs.
It turns turbines, which generate electricity, which powerhouses
for cheap.
And think of that steam, how hot. Like I make ramen noodles. Yeah. There's a lot of steam there, and how hot that is. I couldn't imagine like the temperatures in there.
Yeah.
Like I wonder what the number is on that.
I don't like water in my ramen. I like to drain the water out of my ramen
and put the packet in there.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
I think you're the one that taught me that.
I did.
Yeah, I used to do that in high school.
Crack an egg in there too.
Stir that up like a stir fry.
See, I don't know. I like the broth.
Do you?
Oh, I do too.
Oh no, I don't like the broth.
dig that broth, but dude, I'm still stuck on Nissan cup of noodles.
Excellent.
Look, I know people that are going to just gourmet ramen shit or whatever. Look, I don't have time for that. It's all dehydrated noodles and
I agree.
And MSG.
That's what I think these guys are like. They just want to make some ramen noodles.
I'm sure. Yeah.
They weren't ready for buttons. And
the ramen would have flowed that day. Faux show. All right. Many blame the machinery itself, but human error and miscommunication played crucial roles. The operators, though trained for emergencies, were overwhelmed by the cascading failures and the sheer number of alarms. They misinterpreted the conditions, incorrectly believing the reactor was overfilled with coolant. In reality, it was losing coolant rapidly. One of the most critical errors was the decision to reduce the amount of coolant being pumped into the reactor. This decision was based on a misunderstanding of the reactor's state and resulted in the reactor's core being exposed. The exposed core led to a partial, not full, but partial meltdown, releasing radioactive gases into the plant and, eventually, traces of it into the atmosphere. Throughout the morning, as radiation levels increased, plant officials and government authorities struggled to understand the severity of the situation.
That's what I noticed in a lot of the news, like the old newsreels and stuff. There was a lot of like back and forth. People were obviously scared, so there's like press conferences, and these guys are getting like grilled. Like, well, they found like iodine levels in Goldsboro, like the town right across the.
Yep.
And like people were shocked. The one guy that was up there was like, I didn't know about that. Like he was just finding out in this press conference, and like everybody, it was just like chaos.
It's interesting. I liken this to basically like a car engine. So you can, in fact, you can mess your engine up if you put in too much oil. Things aren't going to, you're not going to get the right amount of friction necessary, right? Like things do have to touch and things do have to make friction in order for pieces to move. Too much oil in that, and you're going to screw shit up. In this case, they thought that was essentially the equivalent of too much oil. In reality, another way to jack up your engine is to not have enough oil. And that's what had happened. So, I mean, they went from one, what was actually happening was not enough to what they thought happened was way too much. Miscommunications between plant operators, emergency responders, and government officials further delayed an appropriate response. Despite the growing crisis, it took days for officials to decide on evacuation measures. President Jimmy Carter and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission were involved in assessing the situation. On March 30th, Pennsylvania Governor Dick Thornburgh recommended a voluntary evacuation for pregnant women and young children who lived within 5-mile radius of the plant. By the end of that day, the radius had been expanded to 20 miles. Lack of clear communication and conflicting reports on radiation levels caused confusion and anxiety amongst the public, leading many residents to evacuate on their own, while others remained unsure of what to do. So this really harkens back to what you were saying earlier, Dave, about it took them a while to figure things out. Because, I mean, I remember doing research on this and looking into this and reading up on it and see what was going down. I mean, you had the Met Ed officials, that's the Metropolitan Edison Power Company, Met Ed officials saying one thing, saying like, look, man, it's cool. It's all right. Don't sweat it. Then you had the government people saying, well, maybe not. We'll see. We're not sure. Maybe, better safe than sorry. Med Ed's like, look, we don't want to cause a panic. You definitely don't want to cause a panic. It's okay, man. I promise. It's all right. We're working this out. Again, of course, on the government side, well, we're not sure. Let's be safe. Better to be safe than sorry. So it really was fighting back and forth, and it's like wagging the dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's the thing I noticed watching the footage, and we were too young to know.
Yeah,
So,
we had no clue.
Yeah, but that's crazy to go from a 5 mile to a 20 mile radius. I would just feel like if you were anywhere in the proximity, you were probably questioning whether to stick around or not. But there again, I don't know how like the people that were old enough to know what the hell's going on, like the public, if they even understood like the danger, or you know what I mean, if they were in any kind of immediate danger, or what the thoughts were.
But hearkening back to what we were discussing, where we grew up, our towns, like you said, blue collar workers, I don't think many people understood, and getting conflicting stories also from the government telling you one thing, you know, local politicians are saying another. And then I don't think anybody really knew what happened or what is, you know, what is going to happen if something bad did happen, because people just didn't know.
People don't, I don't think
there wasn't an explosion. There wasn't, you weren't smelling anything, tasting anything. There wasn't like, you know, weird things in the sky. You just were like, well, what's going on? I don't know.
And that goes back to, I think, Matt, I see where you're going with that. That's just radiation in and of itself. You can't smell it. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't feel it.
This very much reminds me of like the COVID thing.
Yep.
Like it's different in a lot of ways, but in some ways it's the same. Because
I don't think you're allowed to say that anymore.
Why you can't call it COVID?
Yeah, you can't call it COVID.
What do you call it?
It's cold now.
It's just a cold.
It's the flu.
But
it's the flu.
When that initially the news was hitting and everything, there was a lot of like, you'd hear one thing from one source, one thing from another source. You couldn't see it. You couldn't, you know what I mean?
COVID, what is it?
Early on, like if you didn't know anybody that had it, you're like, do you know anybody? I don't know anybody. Did you? You know what I mean?
You really weren't worried about it until you started hearing about people dying. They're saying they died from COVID. And you're like, huh?
But I wonder if
then it like hits home.
I wonder, but also back then there wasn't social media. There wasn't 24-hour news.
Nobody knew anything.
So but there was radio, and I don't know how much these people were getting pounded with
Welcome to 104.3, The Edge.
In between the Bee Gees and whatever else, they're hearing about this.
You were like those, thinking about like the do, like something like that to like warn people.
Yeah, exactly.
There has been a meltdown at 3 Mile Island.
Well, I do know, like I know that we went to Altoona. My family, we left. So I do know that much. But I was too young to really remember much about this.
Do you know when you left? Like, was it like from the gate? Like as soon as the news came out? So if the news came out on whatever day, the 28th, was it like that day as soon as it was spread? Or did you wait a couple of days?
No, it was, I think it was either that day or the next day. It was pretty early on, but I think it was my mom, my grandmother on my mom's side that made the call, kind of like, hey, and everybody was kind of out of here. Like, we're leaving, we're going out. We had family in Altoona, so it was perfect. We were able to go out. It was almost like a mini vacation. But,
sure.
Yeah. The matriarch was like, get out here now.
But yeah, I mean, I have like one memory from that. I remember the t-shirts that they had, and I remember having Gatorade for the first time. For some reason, I remember during this whole ordeal being on the road and stopping at like a convenience store or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but that's about it. But being an adult, like I couldn't imagine, or being old enough to comprehend what was going on, I couldn't imagine.
I mean, you got to be, certainly there's got to be some kind of element of being, scared. You have to be scared because it's a fear of the unknown. It's like Matt had said earlier with the COVID. Like COVID was hyped up to be so goddamn scary, and people didn't die of COVID. People died of resultant effects of COVID. Like people don't die of, the AIDS. People die of something that results from having AIDS.
Like you get pneumonia or something.
Correct.
Or people with like breathing problems would get COVID and then die of problems associated.
Suffocation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I remember early on in like COVID, like we were wiping down groceries, like, you know what I mean? Like wild stuff. It was like, it was
nuts.
I was out working in it. So I was leaving the house every day, going to work. My job, it didn't stop.
I'm the same with you, Dave. Yeah.
But,
we had to go to work.
I had clients. Look, not for nothing. I didn't want to be at home. I tried that. And look, after a week, there were soon to be murders. I cannot work in the same house as my wife, at least not our current house. It's just not big enough.
Not big enough. But I know that like my perspective being out on the road, out like around seeing different places compared to what my wife thought of what was going on, being at home, like she thought it was like Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like apocalypse. I'm like, that's really not what you're thinking. Like I went to the grocery store. I mean, it was a little different, but So, I mean, the perspective was different, I guess.
Yep.
If you're out in it, or if you're at home and closing yourself in and just watching the news all day. So, I guess back then, it was probably very similar.
I don't know. I don't think it was similar to COVID because, like you said, David, the social media and things like that. I think people really didn't know. So there was people that just stayed home. There was people that like, I got to get to work. There was people that like, I got to go get groceries. My kids are hungry. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people didn't think of it as something bad. They were just like, well, they don't really know what's going on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Also,
I'm not that concerned about it.
And
sorry.
I was going to say, Matt's absolutely right. There were people that said, look, this is not that big of a deal. Again, like the number of evacuees were X. There was a hell of a lot more people that stuck around than people that left.
Yeah, plus you got like the governor hanging out in town. Like even it goes to the point, I don't know if we'll get to it, but the president comes in, but they're hanging out here. So they're like, it can't be all that horrible.
And the other difference was this was regional versus COVID was everywhere except Florida.
Worldwide.
There was a place.
Yeah, Florida didn't exist.
There was a place to which you could escape for this TMI thing.
Right.
There was a place to which you could escape as long as you're beyond this area.
Valhalla.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can get out.
Yeah. It's like, if you were just on the edge of Nagasaki, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
You'd survive.
Great film, by the way, Oppenheimer. If you want to learn more about nuclear
I have
energy.
it. I didn't watch it yet.
I still have yet to watch it.
Good flick.
So yeah, it certainly is. It is interesting that people are just, I don't know. They don't know what to do. They were getting conflicting reports. No, it's a shame, but it worked out. As news of the incident broke, the media descended upon the Harrisburg area. Initial reports were chaotic and often contradictory, feeding public fear and speculation. Journalists from around the world covered the story, and the incident quickly became front-page news, thanks in no small part to the sensationalist reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Public reaction was, resultantly, one of fear and outrage.
Resultantly. I like to say that again.
Resultantly.
I like that word.
Many felt that they were not being told the full extent of the danger, and rumors about the plant's condition and the potential for a catastrophic explosion spread rapidly. Anti-nuclear activists, like Matt, seized on the incident to highlight the risk of nuclear power, leading to protests and calls for a reevaluation of nuclear energy policies. The term nuclear meltdown became etched into the collective consciousness.
Now, not for naught, but there was a nuclear meltdown a few years after 3 Mile Island.
In Chernobyl, you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Who cares about the sneaky fucking Russians?
But that was no circus.
Yeah.
Who cares about the Russians?
I'm just saying.
I don't. Well, good. That's what they get for. You know what? Here's what the Russians do. The same thing as the Chinese do. They take something that was engineered and made great in America, and they try to reverse engineer it. They spy. They get almost all the pieces, and they figure out as much as they can, and then they pull a couple of scientists in to piece the puzzle together. And then they get a shoddy, terrible nuclear power plant out of it. So good for them. Make your own shit.
Like a Yugo or something.
Correct.
That's Yugoslavian.
It's the same thing. They took a car and they said, let's make it shittier and cheaper.
Yeah.
But I think to the point of where TMI was at, the way that it didn't get to that point. If there would have been a nuclear explosion is a whole nother story.
Sure.
And I was just saying Chernobyl for people that are listening, if they don't know much about it or they heard of it and didn't research it, check out Chernobyl today and what's there. Like
I watched that documentary.
Yeah, it's a wasteland.
But Matt, what you said there, like you said, nuclear explosion. Without knowing, you would just think, oh, the nuclear plant could explode. But I guess that's a little different because they consider it a meltdown. So much like the movie we'll probably end up talking about, like it'll actually melt down into the earth.
Into the earth.
Right. It's not actually like a bomb. Right?
Yes. Yeah, good way to explain it.
It is indeed a meltdown. And it's so hot that it just keeps on burning. It's burning through dirt. It
just
burns
won't
through
stop.
Rock. It just doesn't stop. So that would, in fact, cook a lot of ramen noodles.
And put off a ton of radiation.
But it wasn't to that point, too. But if it would have melted down, which we don't even know the full story behind if there was a slight meltdown or not, could be the sneaky government hiding that stuff. But if it did melt down, I mean, it's right next to the river that's right there. It would have, affected our water supply.
Chesapeake Bay.
Yep, it would have
river runs
affected
through
it.
it.
Yes.
Indeed.
Who is that? Who's in it?
That's a movie, I think.
Yes,
That's
I know.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like fly fishing?
It was something. Yeah. One
Yeah.
of his
He was fishing for nuclear rods.
nuclear rods.
He found cooling rods.
He had a nuclear rod.
Yeah.
But
Hi-oh.
yeah, talking about that, like the Russians and stuff. After we dropped the bombs, they were talking about when they were testing. It was the largest one ever tested to this day. I think it was called Tsar 1 or something like. I forget what the name of the bomb was. And when they dropped it, they said the area around it, if you were within 60 miles, you would have got 3rd-degree burns.
Sure.
This is off a thermonuclear bomb. So this is different than a nuclear meltdown, which would just be radiation.
Yes.
They said there were windows that were 500 miles away that shattered
Dang.
from the explosion.
From the shock waves.
From the shock waves, yeah. There was, I think it was in Norway or Finland had windows that
Well, that doesn't surprise me. They
Yeah.
have shoddy glass.
Yeah. But
That's another thing for people to check on YouTube, the way that a nuclear explosion does work. Like with I think people, they liken it to like seeing the cloud.
the mushroom cloud, yeah.
Yeah, but the impact or how that energy spreads,
Mm-hmm.
it's an amazing thing.
Well, they said they detonated at 13,000 miles above the earth. And when it hit the ground, so they detonated at 13,000 feet, but when it hit the ground, it caused an earthquake, or it caused equivalent to like a 5.5 earthquake. And it was detonated 13,000 feet in the air.
This is the Russians.
This is the Russian thermonuclear missile that they were testing. Just in comparison, like people were probably comparing like, oh, TMI to like a like if that bomb would go up, but it's something.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Whereas the TMI meltdown would be if there was radiation leaked, it would be slowly over time affecting people.
It's a whole different way of harnessing the power.
Right.
There would not be any kind of explosion. Would not be a nuclear explosion at TMI or even at Chernobyl.
Right. It's different.
It is something attached to it, like maybe hydrogen or oxygen or something else. That's the shit that blows up. That's the actual explosion. Otherwise, at a nuclear plant, you're just getting a meltdown.
Just a lot of heat.
Just a lot of heat.
And it just keeps burning.
And some radiation.
And burning.
Yeah.
But the radiation is what would be released into the atmosphere, into the ground, into drinking water, into your plants, your crops for the next 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Long time.
Long time.
Long time. Two-headed toads for everybody.
long time. Who was that? Two Live Crew?
Two Live
That
Crew.
was a good jam.
That's right. Actually, that was a quote from
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, which they sampled into.
Oh, he too cool.
That's right.
That means large in Vietnamese.
Is that what it is?
Yes. My
They
dad
would-
told me.
They would know. Thanks to the bombs we dropped. Oh, wait. No, that was
That
China.
was.
Sorry.
I'm sure we did drop a lot of
That was-
bombs in Vietnam.
That was Japan. I'm sorry.
They won that one.
By April 1st, cooling measures had been in place, and operators realized there was no likelihood of explosion or leak.
April Fools.
Yeah. Fooled you.
He fooled you, man. You fell for the oldest trick in the book,
I
man.
can't believe you fell for that man.
Wow. That is funny. I mean, you can't. Wow.
By April 1st. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what? 4 days later.
Hey, man, don't worry about it, dude. Nothing happened.
Yeah, 4 days later. With everything now deemed safe, hydrogen that accumulated within the cooling unit was vented and reduced, and the threat of meltdown or a serious radiation leak was brought under control. That same day, in hopes of alleviating public fear, President Jimmy Carter visited 3 Mile Island and toured the control room. In an unnecessary panic that took no more than 5 days to calm, the public's outlook on nuclear energy would forever be tarnished. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Joe Biden.
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Biden. He did this.
He did this.
He did this.
Jimmy was cool, though. I like Jimmy Carter.
He was great with peanuts.
Yeah.
So
He had a farm.
So refresh all of our memory. For Matt, I know you're the head Democrat. What was Jimmy Carter's claim to fame relative to nuclear energy?
His brother with Billy Beer, and he was a peanut farmer.
No,
Oh,
but
Jimmy Carter.
radiation, like when it's something that he.
With nuclear energy and or nuclear reactors.
he was a Navy nuclear submarine.
That's
Yes.
what it was, yeah.
There we are in the Navy, village people.
Yes, in the Navy. But yeah, he was also a graduate from the Naval Academy
And a peanut farmer.
and a peanut farmer.
Nice.
And his brother Billy, and they had Billy Beer. Actually, my dad had a can of Billy Beer at our bar. And that's what I never even knew what it was until he explained it to me one day.
So wait a second. I remember seeing that can. So that's Jimmy Carter's brother?
Yes, it was his like
He has a
brew.
beer.
no, it wasn't his brewery, but it was his like his namesake. But I guess I think it was Coors or whatever, or some brewery caught on to it and was like, we're gonna call this Billy Beer.
Put it out.
So if
Because-
I started making beer and called it malted Matt, that's exactly what it is.
I don't know if I'd be like a malt beer kind of.
You,
don't know.
yeah, you?
Yeah, like if it like a
Um,
malted Matt,
Yeah.
like a Matty Ice, maybe.
Matty Ice.
There you go, Matty Ice.
Yeah.
So what? Let's get back on track here. So what are we? 5 days later, this all started. Late night, the 27th, wee hours of the 28th. By April 1st, everything's under control. So much under control, in fact, that the president of the United States visited and was touring the plant. So if the Secret Service and whatever safety measures are letting the president of the United States visit a would-have-been nuclear meltdown catastrophe, it's got to be okay.
Either that or he took iodine pills.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Or they took
was-
safety measures.
He was drinking bleach at the time. He was the first president to
He's high on
decide that
bleach.
drinking bleach would
Yeah.
cure all.
And-
I think that, I mean, no conspiracy here, but I think the government does shit like that just to be like, hey, everything's cool. Like check out the president. He's not even worried.
maybe
about
it's
it.
I would
a-
agree that Jimmy Carter is, expendable.
Well, maybe it was a clone. Maybe it wasn't even him. You know what I mean? Maybe
Oh.
it was like an actor that they sent in the, you know what I mean? You never know. But I
You
think
don't
it was
even know.
really him. I don't know if they pulled that off back in the day, but you never know.
Attack of the Clones.
I thought you were saying
But-
killer tomato.
The killer tomatoes, yeah. I'm sure they definitely did that, obviously, to get the public to go, oh, what the president's there has got.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yeah. The government has been known to do things like that to calm tensions or to bring the boiling point down a little bit. Be like, hey, everything's fine. Like, look, we're cool.
I had heard about that that clone stuff, like a stunt double or some shit. So
Yeah,
way back in the day, like there's Hollywood makeup.
Yeah,
They-
Skurlock.
Yeah, so there's stuff like if you see like a Mission Impossible movie or something like that, like you see these crazy ass disguises these guys are able to pull off like digitally or like just pull this little thing off of this thin sheet off of their face and it's a completely different person. So you always have like military technology or government technology that's decades ahead of current.
Yes.
I gotta believe that for damn sure they have had for decades the ability to have stunt double presidents.
Yeah.
And I'm
sure.
saying that
No, it's the
we'll
same as
cover
like in
the
Star
whole
Wars.
range.
Like you don't always put like the queen out there. You don't always put like somebody that has some sort of
Ooh, Amidala. I
Yes.
see what you did there.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. But she had her little buddy, but then you're like, is that her little buddy or is that Natalie Portman? I don't know. They look a lot alike.
You don't even know.
But if they're similar and they're out there and they're in the public eye, nobody really knows what that person looks like really up close. I mean,
They
they
might
see
look
TV.
different.
Yes. Oh, I saw, Jimmy Carter there. He looks a little different in person.
He was on his iPhone.
And how many times have you guys said that where you're like, oh, I saw this famous star and you're saying that guy looks different in person?
Yeah.
And no, people say that like, oh, he looked different. Or you see a band that you like, oh, they looked a lot different in person.
Are you sure that was Elizabeth Shue you ran into?
Yes. I don't know now.
You don't even know.
You don't know.
It could have been a stunt double. I'm telling you though, that makeup stuff, that's a thing, dude.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying with with the president, they could have, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what happened or if that, you know what I mean? I'm sure he was really there.
Look, I'm
But
saying
there could have been precautions taken. Like I know they say if they were giving out iodine pills,
Yeah.
because supposedly if you take these iodine pills, it's supposed to block the radiation from going into your thyroid.
yeah.
Whereas we're the first place that it'll absorb, I guess.
I take an iodine supplement every day.
Oh, do you?
Really?
I do. Because I don't eat iodized salt.
Oh, okay.
Can you snort that?
The salt or the iodine?
The iodine.
Maybe.
I would do a line of iodine if I could.
If I crush the pill up, I'm sure I could.
That'd be cool. It'd be like Smarties in like 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think that is a thing. I think when you see these dignitaries or like these heads of state or presidents going to like these countries in wartime, I'm like, that can't. No,
Yeah.
you're not doing that.
Yep.
When
It's the same, look, it's the same thing with Trump at the recent rally. He didn't get shot. That was a ketchup packet. We all know it.
Yeah.
It's true.
No, it wasn't a ketchup packet.
It was.
I think when the Secret Service tackled him, they snipped his ear.
It's we talked about this, man.
Yes,
it's
we talked about it.
It's the razor that like
Yes,
wrestlers do.
razor.
The wrestler's razor before they go into a fight to enable the bleeding when they get hit. All he had to do was he sliced his ear, then he slapped his head, and that's what cracked it
That's
open.
amazing.
Can I talk like this? This is actually kind of funny. It made me laugh. But like the pillow thing that Trump, if you have like good doctors, wouldn't you have like a nice little Band-Aid or something? there.
I mean,
It looks like, remember when you get hurt in T-ball? Like they would come and put like that stuff on you. It looks like they just like ripped that thing open in the packet, just put it on his ear.
Oh, the big gauze pack.
Yeah. I was like, come on, man.
He's missing a piece of his ear. Maybe, just maybe, they had to do a skin graft and they're growing it back. Just maybe.
You think they took it off of like a rat or a mouse? You know how they're doing that now?
I don't know the extent of President Trump's injuries, but I hope for his swift and speedy recovery. And
I cannot speculate on his injury. I mean, you've seen the footage, but was it even Trump now? Like we're talking, was he at that rally? Who knows?
You don't even
might
know.
Not have been him. I don't know.
Who?
Man, we just dug deep here in the basement.
That's a deep dive.
Yeah, that's a whole deep dive episode.
The weeks following the incident at 3 Mile Island were as much challenging as they were chaotic. Immediate efforts focused on stabilizing the reactor and preventing further release of radiation. The cleanup process began shortly after, but it proved to be incredibly complex and costly. One of the first steps was to remove the damaged nuclear fuel from the reactor, a task that required specialized equipment and careful planning. Workers had to contend with high radiation levels and the need to prevent any further contamination. The task was further complicated by the need to ensure the safety of the workers and the surrounding community.
Yeah,
so
I know,
could you just imagine that?
Well, I know I saw like a lot of footage of them like constantly getting hosed down, like every time they're in and out because of the like it's all over their clothes, their bodies, everything.
Yeah, like
it's so contaminated.
This isn't Carl going into the pool after they find the baby Ruth in there.
Oh yeah,
sweeping out the
Caddyshack.
Yeah,
Hey, I found it. I got it.
Right. This is like bad stuff.
It's cool. There's nothing wrong with it.
Wrong with it.
Yeah, this is something far different than that. You know, you're just not sweeping out a pool here, man. Like this is some serious shit. They got to They got to go in shifts.
Mm-hmm.
They can only be in there for X number of minutes.
That had to have been a contracted company.
Well,
I could see nobody that was in nuclear power being like, yeah, I'll do that.
Well, don't quote me on this, but and it's going to be too. I have to bring it up on another episode. A guy at work who's a little older, he's probably close to 60, lived in Middletown, and told me that him and like his brothers, they would like hire people to go down there to help clean this stuff up.
That's what I'm saying. It had to be contracted out.
It was like good money, but they would go down and help clean everything up, and they were told like, "Oh, you'll be fine."
Yeah, it was good money because it's like, here's $30 in like 1979,
right?
And it'd be like, oh, because then you don't have to worry about insurance. You're not paying for any days off
Because they were like trucking it out slowly.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Over a long period of time, they were taking all the basically the material.
He'd actually be a cool person to call for like, yeah.
I think they store that shit in Idaho.
Is that where they put it?
I'm pretty sure I can't say specifically the TMI stuff, but I know that there's a lot of nuclear waste that is kept in Idaho.
I thought they put it on cargo ships and just dumped it in the ocean.
Which is fine.
It could be.
I mean, the ocean is vast. Is it really going to hurt? Is it really going to hurt anything?
Send it to China.
Put it in the Mariana Trench.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a guy
that knows all about Mariana. But yeah, I mean, they had to put it somewhere, get rid of it and get it out of there, I guess. So they slowly were like moving up. But I got to talk to that guy and find out. But I could swear that he told me he was like in his teens then, late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, not for this episode if we can't get him in, which we might not be able to, but for him to call in one day would be interesting. I'd like to hear about that. 'Cause like I said, I knew they had to been contracted out. There was nobody in their right mind dealing with nuclear power being like, yeah, I'm going to go in there and clean it out for you guys.
So what you're saying, let me see if I got you straight here, Matt. So somebody who's in the biz.
Yes.
You're saying like the master's degrees and doctor's degrees we were talking about earlier that work with Homer Simpson.
Yes.
Those guys would say, hell
yeah,
no.
That's not my job. I'm not going in there to clean that up. Be like, well, you guys are the experts. You wouldn't know. No, No, I'm expert enough to stay the hell out of there. Yes, I've researched this. I know what this stuff can do. I'm good. And that's why Dave said, like, I'm sure they asked for people or put out a job app. Hey, we need guys to come in here. We're paying $35 an hour. Like I said,
look, it's like the Amish. They're expendable. It's fine.
Yeah.
Look, it's just some quick and easy money for some quick and easy work.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you get like a sixth finger on the one hand?
I mean, Bobby Smith from Middletown and his brother. They're coming in there to do this because it's easy money.
Dude, you could come out like a circus freak. It worked for Frank Lentini.
Well, there's people that pay people to like taste their food, eat their food before they, to make sure that they're not poisoned or whatever. Like people will do anything for money. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's somebody that's doing that job. So I'm sure with this job, they're just like,
What do you do?
I taste food for the king or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like somebody's got to do it.
We were talking earlier about who went where. So, Dave, you went to Altoona.
Correct.
Bona Fortuna.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, where did you go?
Real quick, shout out to my cousin Scott too. He listens to every episode up there.
Hey,
He's
Scott.
working at State College. He's from Altoona,
Oh.
so I know he's probably listening to this. It was actually his family that I stayed with. We were out there. He was younger than me, so he was. I mean, he might not have been born yet.
Nice.
Or
Oh,
his
okay.
sister, but his mom and dad and grandmother. That's where we went. So shout out to Scott.
Shout out to Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Every time I hear the name Scott anymore, I think of Frau Farbissna from Austin Powers.
Oh yeah, Scott.
Correct.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it. I would do it a definite injustice, but yeah. Shout out to Scott in Frau Farbissna's voice.
Yep.
Matt, where did you go?
I think Minersville. I think that's what my mom said. Marysville, Minersville. I don't know.
That's on the way to Mount Carmel, where I went.
Yes, you were up there.
I was
Mount
up in Mount
Carmel,
Carmel. Yep. So I guess Matt. So let's see, Minersville.
There'll be some interesting facts on that, I guess.
Yeah, you're talking about like an hour and change away. Mount Carmel is hour and a half, no more than 2 hours away, depending on how slowly you drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta wonder, like, is that far enough? Would that have been far enough? Should there have been a
Well, I think our parents took what
scary meltdown.
I think our parents took what was given to them, as in 20 miles. If you're within the 20 mile, just get outside of the 20-mile radius,
Which is
I think,
cool.
Which I think all of our parents did.
Yeah.
And you were at where? Mount Carmel?
Just outside of Mount
Outside
Carmel.
of Mount Carmel.
And
What's
this
the
is,
town?
So the town I was in is Wilburton, and in
Ooh.
fact, Wilburton is basically smack dab halfway in between Mount Carmel and Centralia.
Oh
Neat.
yeah.
Our loyal listeners may recall our awesome podcast on Centralia.
And this is before GPS and all that. So you think about when you're traveling, and like I don't know about you guys, my family, like they think it's like, oh, I'm going out of town if I'm going to Grantville, which is like 15 minutes from here. You know what I mean? Like in their mind, that's like way out there. So
That's well put, though, Dave. What you're getting into. I mean, I'm not going to cut you off real quick, but yeah, you know how to get there just by directions, I guess. I don't know.
take
It's crazy.
22 and just keep driving or
Yep.
whatever, So in their mind, they're just like, they know how to get to Altoona, obviously, my family, because we have family out there. But you're reading a big ass paper map. You're probably putting it out like, oh, we got to go here, and you got to like try to plot it out. And it's different than it would be now. Now you could just put it in your GPS and go wherever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So 50 miles probably seemed like across the country back then.
Dude, so we all grew up on the East Shore, and for anyone who's not aware, there's this river called the Susquehanna River, which divides the East Shore and the West Shore of that river. On the East Shore is the Harrisburg side, the state capital, and anything that we've talked about, like Middletown, High Spire, Steelton, you name it. On the West Shore are things like Camp Hill, Mechanicsburg, even deeper, you have Carlisle. That's not even West Shore, like you're going deep.
Mm-hmm.
There are people on the East Shore of the Susquehanna that live on the eastern side of the Susquehanna River, and the X number of towns in that 717 area code side that still to this day have never crossed the river.
Mm-hmm.
That if you tell them you're crossing the river, they think that you're driving to Maryland.
Yeah,
Yes, very
out
true.
there.
You
Yeah.
might as well be driving to Maryland.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, that was a big thing if we had to go onto the West Shore. And even in high school, I remember like Sean,
Mm-hmm.
he had friends that lived in New Cumberland, which I was like, oh, we're going to New Cumberland?
there,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
like, yeah, we got a friend. We used to play Mortal Kombat over this one guy's house. He had, I remember like, we were still pretty young, but the guy had his like own place, had like 3 roommates.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking? Have you ever been over there?
I think I know the house you're talking
Yeah.
about, yeah.
I think he had like a glass eye.
I mean, it's funny.
No, seriously.
That's funny though, Matt. I see what you're saying. Like back then, you think of New Cumberland, you ask like, well, do I need to pack a lunch?
Yeah,
Do I need to take a day off?
Over there,
It
yeah.
seemed far away.
Yeah. For
Gotta-
damn sure far away.
Sounds like we got type cars. You got to get out in front and crank them up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's that
Look
whole-
here, Shane.
Feed the horses on the way.
You're right.
All right. Well, after all that, Unit 1 went back online in 1985.
Good job, Unit 1.
Unit
Mhm.
1. Unit 1 was not the one that was damaged. Unit 1 was just fine. Unit 2 was
Unit
the one
2,
that was
mhm.
damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So they just shut it down just to they had to, I guess, to do the cleanup. Like, look, shut it all down. We got to make sure everything's good. We're going to revamp this. We got to rebuild the engine. We got to do whatever we got to do, but we're going to make sure this is right. So that Unit 1, the one that was not damaged, was still offline for 6 years.
Repairs, man.
I guess, repairs, replacements. It wasn't until 1993 that the decontamination process at Unit 2 was officially declared complete,
Jeez, 14 years.
though the unit did remain inoperable. TMI's Unit 1 functioned perfectly until it was shut down at noon on September 19th, 2019, and the plant has remained closed since.
Oh, what a sad ending.
That's a sad ending for nuclear excellence in Middletown, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And that was the last plant, right? That in the United States.
That was the last plant built in the United States. There are still existing and running nuclear plants in the United States.
There's another big one right here in Pennsylvania.
Peach Bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not huge. It's not the size of 3 Mile Island.
Nope.
It's like 1 or 2 maybe reactors.
Which again has 4 towers, but only 2 of them function.
And Ohio has one. I think there's one going up north.
I've heard that the power that TMI was generating, a lot of it was sent to New Jersey, New York. So we didn't even really reap the benefits here other than the jobs and the, that part of it.
MedEd is they have a big footprint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for damn sure, a sizable footprint. So yeah, they're going to do what they're going to do to get their power to where it needs to go.
Right. But what I'm saying is that, did you guys hear that too? Have you ever heard that we didn't really, TMI never really powered anything around here? Is that true?
I had heard the same.
Okay.
Now that could have been a tale told by old wives or old tale told by wives.
Right.
Yeah.
I would figure that would have to be a large project. I guess they would run the lines, under the water and through the ground?
Well, no, you can see them going out through the fields and stuff. Like, I don't think anything goes underwater.
Okay.
I mean, they clear out up over the mountains and everywhere.
Yeah, man,
it's all above ground.
Oh, those big
huge
towers that,
man, with the big lines that run on
that
them.
cause cancer.
Yeah, that if you have a house by, you just hear the whole time.
Kids walking around with their hair standing on edge.
Yeah.
Right. Or I golf right through it over there. What's that golf course? Parline?
Parline, yep, in Middletown.
We call it
Power
Power
line.
Line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you...
Parline. I thought that was Sunset.
Well, Sunset's down very near TMI, but then if you go out...
Sunset overlooks TMI in the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Parline is right the first tee.
Parline is on Route 230 on the way to E-Town.
Okay.
And those power lines go right through it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you tee off, like Matt said, hole number one.
Hole number one, yeah.
Right there.
If you hit it, you can move it, I think, club's length outside of the...
Yeah.
Nice.
But you do, right when you go underneath it, Dave's right, you just hear this
the humming and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm cool.
Can't be healthy, man. Can't be healthy.
A buddy of mine lives under and has lived for decades underneath one of those towers. He's got a tower run through his backyard.
I thought they had made that illegal.
You couldn't pay me enough to live in a house that has a tower running through the back with those lines running through my backyard.
But
no goddamned way.
I thought there had to be a certain amount of
space
between those lines now.
I mean, you live at your own risk, bruh.
I guess you're right.
Yeah, that's...
Power company has, there's easements that they have running through the yards and stuff, so they'll trim the bushes, they'll trim the verge, anything that's growing up and doing whatever that's going to, mess with their power lines. But otherwise, yeah, man, you live anywhere at your own risk.
I think it'd be a cool band name, for in the 80s, Power Line.
Power Line.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that would be a good name. But I wonder if they're, when they run those power lines, if it's, say they decide to run new ones.
Yeah.
And I'm sure maybe from time to time they have to.
Yeah.
Can they come through your property? Or is there a
That's eminent domain, man.
Eminent domain.
They can do whatever the hell they want.
So I know the roads work that way. I think with the power companies anymore, they don't run anything above ground just because it's too risky.
Yeah, our neighborhood is all below ground wiring.
And by risky, I mean it's risky to them to the extent that repairs, maintenance, bullshit,
thunderstorms,
hassles.
Yeah.
It is just so much more cost effective to spend that money, dig that hole, run those lines in the ground. You don't have to worry about storms. You don't have to worry about busted ass poles. You don't have to worry about stupid ass kids messing on the poles.
Falling down off, climbing them.
Yeah.
Stupid.
You have to worry about squirrels crawling up there and
getting shocked.
Yeah.
But as that was saying, a lot of the new neighborhoods now, everything is underground.
Underground.
That's how our neighborhood is. Yeah.
Sound's laid down.
That's where the sound is laid down.
That's right. Yeah.
Fun fact on this, before we, finish up or whatever.
Yeah.
Where I grew up, in Middletown, a lady that helped raise me because my mom and dad both worked. So we went to a lady called Aunt Joyce. We call her Aunt Joyce because she's raised us since we were tiny. I think 3 months old, I started going there. But she was an advocate against nuclear power. And there's documentaries on Netflix, and there's actually another movie out. I think it's about the moms of TMI. That there's a little Matt's on there. There's a little picture of little Matt.
Nice.
3 of the people in her family got cancer. I don't know if it's anything you can directly relate, But they also did a lot of farming. They would go around the area of TMI years after, and they would find like mushrooms and different type of things, and stuff was growing oddly. It was just odd. So there had to been some nuclear whatever released into the atmosphere.
Reaction or something. What's going on?
Nuclear.
Here's some fun facts on the whole story here.
Yeah.
So the total cost for the plant was estimated to be around $700 million
That's kind of cheap.
to build it.
In 60s and 70s money?
Yeah, that's big money.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of money.
But they're making a lot of money, I'm sure, off of the power they're generating.
Sure.
But the accident caused an estimated $2.4 billion
With a B.
in cleanup. Yeah.
Cardos go like this.
Yeah. So, but you figure.
So that was not worth the squeeze. That
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that's probably why they closed. Because they were probably never above water.
I did
No
read
pun
that.
intended.
In 2019, when they closed, it was because they were still trying to work off an operating deficit, and they just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah. One of the artists that was inspired.
Prince.
No, Prince. I don't know. He might have wrote a song about it, but Bruce Springsteen, who lived less than 100 miles from 3 Mile Island, wrote a song called Roulette. Or Roulette, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Probably Roulette.
Yeah, about the incident. And
got my woman pregnant and she couldn't work.
yeah,
I
so
don't know. Springsteen talks about that.
one of the lines and opens with the lyrics, I've got a house full of things that I can't touch. We left the toys out in the yard. I took my wife and kids and I left my house unguarded. We packed what we could into the car. No one knows how it started. He recorded in 1979 and it remained unreleased.
Not one of his big hits.
No, but although it was available through bootlegging and stuff like that.
That's great.
So, but yeah, thought that was a pretty cool fun fact.
Yeah, he's a hippie.
You know what a fun fact on Bruce is? A lot of the songs he sings about, you would think of him as like a hardworking.
He's not.
Yes,
No.
all his songs are just made up songs.
Yep. He's trying to. Yep.
Yeah.
It's all fake. Now look, I've seen him in concert, and it's a great concert.
Yeah, I dig that. I would like to see him because he's Bruce.
He's a powerful musician, but he can keep his hippie lyrics and whatever the hell else he's peddling.
Yeah.
Fun fact about
Peddling. That's a paddling.
Do you have any more?
Well, one other thing on the cleanup effort, Reactor 2, it was like 100 tons of radioactive fuel that they had to remove out of there.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what they shipped to Idaho.
Yeah.
Promise you, that's what they shipped to Idaho.
What do they put it in, like one of those underground bunker type things?
Yep.
Or
Put them in 50-gallon drums,
Yep,
or 100-gallon drums,
yeah.
and bury that shit.
Mm-hmm.
The
we'll
fun
get
fact
back to that later.
about TMI, the TMI at one point was a farm.
Yes.
They farmed. So way back in the day, TMI was, it's TMI 3 Mile Island was and remains an island. And on that island, the owners of the island at the time farmed melons. They ended up selling that island to a local power company.
Robert Plant or Richard Palmer.
Not
Robert Plant.
Robert Palmer.
Robert Palmer.
Yeah.
They did not sell it to the band Power Plant. Instead, they sold it to a power company after a winter. There's ice that flows down that river when you get cold, whatever. The ice had just destroyed the barn.
Oh, shit.
Took the melons down.
Destroyed the barn. And instead of rebuilding and doing whatever, they said, you know what? We'll sell this to the power company, take our losses, and go.
There you
That'd
go.
be great farming land. Water everywhere.
Water everywhere. It's instant irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting that you said I didn't know that story. That's the first time I heard it. But who are the people that walk, or like who are these people that are hired? Like your job is to go around looking for a good place for a
nuclear power plant?
for a power plant.
Well, surveyors.
Yeah, they start with a map, right?
They're probably look at this piece of little land here in Pennsylvania.
They're looking for something that's it's got to be surrounded by a shit ton of flowing water. So no matter what, a river is required to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then from there, all right, let's find a spot.
Yeah.
Like this looks good.
Yeah, makes sense.
Those farmers made out though, I bet you.
I bet you. It's interesting as we go through this. We were only, as we talked about this, we're only like a year or two old when this was going down.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny.
It would be good for us to, I don't know. I wish we could talk to somebody who, was there, who really knew about it, who could, tell us what went down.
I think you're hitting at something.
I don't know.
No, weren't our parents were like alive and with us at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were probably the ones that would have to drive us somewhere safe.
Well, we already talked about them. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why don't we, I don't know. Here's the thought. Why don't we talk to our moms about it?
Why don't we do that?
I think our moms would like that. It'd be like a nice get together. We'll get some like crimpets.
Yeah, well,
tea.
It'd be like the Golden Girls
Mm-hmm.
without
The Golden Girls do TMI.
without
Yeah.
Blanche the whore.
This would be a real ODB origin.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
This would truly be an ODB origin story. The women who saved our lives.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea, guys. We'll have to try to make that happen. That'd be a hard thing to do, but we can try to make that happen.
Make it happen.
Hey guys, can you wrap it up?
Oh,
Sure thing.
I'm glad we got that in time.
yeah.
Yeah, that's we should look into that, man. Let's see if we can't get the moms in here and have a nice little lively conversation, get their inputs and everything that went down way back in the day.
Good idea.
I was thinking if we were teenagers, they're going to be like, yeah, I got your mom's number.
Yeah, right. I
But I think we're too old for that. It's not as funny anymore.
It's not going to work now.
Because we have it like in emergency listings.
Yeah. But
It would have been funnier back in the day, but it still holds water, I
I'm
guess.
still laughing.
I think
Thank
that'd be
you.
a good idea, though, because it would give us perspective on people that were there and kind of knew what was going on. But
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting. But we better wrap this up before she has a meltdown.
Oh,
Yeah.
And,
We don't need Mrs. Dave going nuclear on us.
Right. I guess that's it. So don't forget to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Dirty Basement, on TikTok at Old Dirty Basement Podcast. Don't forget to leave us that written review on Apple and Spotify. You can leave that 5-star rating or wherever you're at. And I guess that's it for now. So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace. Thanks for hanging out in the Old Dirty Basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is available streaming on Spotify and Apple, and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We Audi 5000.